Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at how to do a chain stitch. I'm starting off with a knot tied in the end of my thread, and I'm working with 3 strands of DMC, stranded cotton. There's not really any sort of rule or recommended thickness. I vary the thread that I'm actually stitching with depending on how thick I want the chain to be, so it can change quite a lot, but for this purpose you should be able to see a lot easier with it being 3 strands. So what I'm doing is I've just gone straight through the fabric when I've got my knot already tied, and we want to make just a very short stitch to begin with, and this is your anchor stitch. So this is where all of the chains are going to link into one another. I'm going to do this quite wide so that you can see really clearly what it is that I'm doing. You want to go through the anchor stitch that you've placed initially, and you want to put it round just so it's not, don't pull too tight initially, and you want to go straight back down where you came up, so you're making a little loop just like that, and then you just want to keep repeating that process. So we're going straight under just like that, and we're pulling straight round and back down again. It's quite a straightforward stitch, as you can see, but there's definitely a knack to picking up when you need to pull the thread taut and when it's better to leave it slightly more slack. A chain stitch is really versatile in terms of the kinds of thicknesses and sort of variations that you can actually get doing it. Like I said before, you can have more strands, and that gives you more strands of thread, and that can give you a much more raised, prominent chain at the end. Or you can go for a really fine chain, only really using 1 or 2 strands of thread. It really depends on the kind of effect that you're looking to create. Again, like I said, this is like with most hand embroidery stitches. Tension is a thing that you learn only really by practice, but it's really important to not pull your thread too tight. I think that's quite a common, okay, we lost the sun a little bit there, but just carrying on from what I was saying, it's quite a common mistake that a lot of people make when they're first learning embroidery. It's about pulling stitches too tight, and this can cause puckering of the fabric. It can quite often prevent the actual stitch from sitting as it's supposed to on the fabric, and cause all sorts of different problems. So you're always better off to start gentle until you get the hang of what it is that you want to achieve with your sewing. And the more, as with anything, the more practice, the better you get. There's no shortcut, especially with an art form like embroidery, where it's a very slow art form, even when you're really experienced. So when you're starting out, the key is just to take your time, get to know and feel comfortable with what it is that you're doing. And the great thing with there's a few different ways of doing chain stitch, but the great thing about doing this type of chain stitch is when you're finished, you don't have to anchor the chain at all, because you've already placed your anchor at the beginning. So as soon as you're finished, you can just leave it like that. It's already anchored itself in place, and you can either tie a knot in the thread on the reverse side to fix it in place permanently, or you can carry on sewing a different chain and move on to a next part on the fabric. You don't need to worry about that coming loose. It's nice and tight onto your fabric.